Nhờ của biểu hôn sai thọ. I was born and raised here in Minnesota. I grew up with 7 sisters and 3 brothers. And growing up with a lot of siblings was a lot of fun and challenging. One of those challenges was learning English. Because I was always around family who spoke Hmong, it made it difficult to learn English. So that made it really difficult for me to navigate the classroom and do well when I went into school. So when I became a mother, it was important that my children have brothers and sisters to grow up with and learn from, as well as be prepared to go into school during those early years. I have been home for 11 years now. I have 2 boys who are 13 and 14 years old. Their names are Thee and Thai. And then I have 2 daughters who are 10 and 2. And their names are Doa and Lucia. I also have a daughter who would be 11 years old today, but she drowned when she was 6, and her name is Jia. So I decided to come home when Thee was 2 years old. This is right after his screening with Help Me Grow. I remember making the phone call and doing the intake and just going down a list of these developmental behaviors and being very discouraged. But then Help Me Grow sent a team with a teacher, a speech therapist, a occupational therapist, along with a physical therapist. They came into my home and they observed Thee engaging with his brother and I. And it was after that it was determined that he was developmentally delayed. And he was delayed cognitively, socially, and he was also delayed with his speech and motor skills. And with that, he was able to receive services right away. You know, for the first 6 months, that was really helpful for me as a parent. I learned a lot about parenting, and I was able to differentiate that from mothering. Now, these are 2 different kind of roles, and it really made me understand how to support Thee in the way that he needed to in order to develop and grow. When an early special education opened up at a school nearby, it was easy for me to say, okay, let's enroll Thee, get him into an environment that will support him socially, emotionally, cognitively, you know, and for him to really work on developing the language that he needed. Today, Thee is 13 years old. He still is in school with some of those children that he started with 11 years ago, and they are great friends. And I'm really glad that, you know, we made those choices of getting him screened and into a program that really supported and surrounded him with the kind of relationships that he needed. So after Thee's intervention with Help Me Grow, we also did that with his brother Thai. And Thai was just 4 at this time. We first identified him with ADHD, and then later on the spectrum as well. Both my sons are doing great. If you were to meet them today, you wouldn't notice that they are on the spectrum. They get up, get themselves ready, and get themselves to their bus stops and go through school and come back home, and they just do really well, and I'm pretty proud of that. I'm very proud of my family. I'm proud of my sons and my daughters, and proud of my husband who has been home for the last 6 years here with me, developing our families. I'm grateful for resources like Help Me Grow and opportunities like early childhood family education and early childhood special education that really just grow families. I was pregnant with my 3rd child at that time, and we were going through 2 appointments, and I came along one of the brochures, picked it up, read it. I had friends who were in education or going into education, right? And we had talked about what I was noticing with my son Thee. And so when I came home to have my baby, you know, I just picked up the phone and made the phone call to help me grow. And that's how we started. Our district came out and with the teacher, you know, an occupational therapist, speech therapist, and physical therapist, and they did the eval. And after that, we had a therapist or two therapists come out and met with us weekly to give us tips and provide those services to Thee. You know, I was really lost. You know, I grew up with mothering. You know, so mothering for me is caretaking. I grew up with, you know, food that was already available at the table, you know, and when I was done, all that was taken care of for me. My mother, so I had a lot of siblings, so my mother would just put clothes on me, you know, that sort of stuff. So that's what I did with my children. When Help Me Grow came, I realized that I had to take a step back and really take a look at, you know, parenting and how that looked and how that was different from mothering. And I still do a lot of mothering today, but mothering looks really different then and it looks really different today. And parenting for me is really a relationship between me and my child, and it's a learning relationship. So I learn about my child and my child learn about me, and we talk about what we see and how we can work with each other on developing a relationship and growing ourselves. And what really frustrated me was that when the therapists who were coming into our home, they were working with my child, and I had to ask a lot of questions, such as, well, you know, now that you guys are leaving, what more could I do? How could I set up, you know, our house in order for, you know, my child to start engaging or developing or learning in. And so I think the first thing I remembered was get a ball pit, because that's what he needed. You know, he needed a lot of that heavy work. So we got a ball pit, and that ball pit was made out of a playpen and a whole bunch of balls. And his eyes just lit up, and he was just about 2.5. Going on to 3, his eyes lit up, and he ran over and he jumped right into the ball pit. And I never saw that excitement, or haven't seen that excitement from him quite yet. And that made me realize, oh, you know, this is how I can impact my child. And this is how I can grow my child. I think there is definitely a lot of different ways that we can look at mothering and parenting, and I think if we dig deep and search into our own experiences, that we can come up with tools and skills that's needed in order to give our children, in order to thrive in today's world.